In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to play smokes in Valorant. While recording for my video where I played as KO for a week, it was a struggle sometimes to be able to play as KO, since some people did not want to play as smokes, and if they did, they were kind of confused on how to play as a controller. I would get players smoking out here, here, and here. So I wanted to make this video to help anybody that's interested on learning how to play as a controller. So in this video, I'm going to be going over controller agents, how you should be placing your smokes, and what controller agents may fit your playstyle. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe. Now let's get into the video where I show you how to play as a controller in Valorant. At the time of this recording, there are currently 4 controller agents. We have Astra, which is my favorite agent and arguably one of the best controllers. We have Brimstone, which is one of the starter agents that has been around since beta. Omen, which is one of the most popular controller and has been for a while. And finally Viper, which has quite a come story when it comes to becoming one of the most useful agents in the game. First, let's talk about Astra. Astra is my favorite controller in the game due to the fact that she's able to place utility down across the map from anywhere at a fast pace. She does this by entering into her Astra form, which you're able to enter using your ult key. You are then presented with a ring that shows you the area of your smoke and where you can place your stars down. A tip I could give you whenever you're playing Astra is to place your stars down whenever you're in your Astra form, and then use your abilities whenever you're out of it. This makes it so you can use your abilities almost instantly. Now let's go over Astra's kit. Astra C is her gravity well. You're granted 1 per every 25 seconds, and what this does is it makes all the players around the star get pulled towards the center of the star. If your enemy ends up in the area of the star, they will be vulnerable for 5 seconds. Next is her Q or Nova Pulse, which concusses all the enemy players that are within the area for 4 seconds, and you are granted 1 per every 25 seconds. Next is Astra's E or Nebula or Smoke, which lasts 14 seconds, and you're granted 2 per every 14 seconds. You're also able to pick up her stars using the F key, and this will allow you to have a 1-second smoke that you can use to quickly peek an area or if you're going to try to cross a doorway. Though you're going to have to wait 15 seconds until you're able to use the star again since it has to recharge. And finally, her ultimate, which takes 7 ult points, gets deployed whenever you're in your Astra form by right clicking on a point that you want her wall to rotate from. Then you double left click to deploy your Cosmic Divide. You're not able to shoot through her ultimate wall, and you're not able to see anything on the other side of the wall. Though you're able to throw utility across the wall, and you're able to barely hear what's going on the other side of it. As you can see, the way Astra uses her abilities is a bit different from the other agents in the game. You start off with 1 star at the beginning of the game and can have a max of 5 stars per round. Theoretically, if you had time, you could use 1 ability for all 5 stars, like your smokes for example. Now let's get into Brimstone. Brimstone is probably one of the first controllers everybody plays with since he's automatically unlocked whenever you first get the game. He's not an agent that I've used much since his kit is a bit weaker in my opinion as compared to the other agents, but he can still be useful depending on the given map. Let's go over Brimstone's kit and first start off with his stim beacon. Brim C is a stim beacon which he throws in front of himself, causing you and your teammates to have a 15% faster fire rate on your gun. Note that it only works for automatic weapons. He's able to have 2 stim beacons per round, with each of them costing 100 credits and lasting for 12 seconds. Next, we will go over his Q or Incendiary, or Molly, whatever. His molly works similar to other mollies in the game since you're only able to have 1 per round and costing 250 credits. His molly can last up to 7 seconds, causing 60 damage per second. Brimstone's free ability is his smokes, which you're able to get at least 1 at the beginning of the game, and you have to buy the other 2 smokes which cost 100 credits each. His smokes stay up the longest in the game, which lasts 19 seconds per smoke, though you're not able to regenerate your smokes as the other controllers are able to. To deploy his smokes, what you're going to want to do is pull out your iPad and left click on where you want to place your smokes. Once you're ready to deploy your smokes, right click so they can go down. Finally is his ultimate, or Widow Strike, which costs 7 ult points and lasts up to 3 seconds, causing 20 damage per tick, with each second having 6.67 ticks per second. Next, let's talk about Omen. I think he's the most self-sufficient when it comes to kills since he has his TP, which can help you get out of sticky situations, and his flash, which also does the same thing. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, so let's talk about his C, which is his TP or Shrouded Step. You're able to get a max of 2 TPs per round, with each of them costing 150 credits per round. Next is his Q or Paranoia, which you can get a max of 1 per round, and it costs 300 credits per round. His free ability or E is his Smoke, and as right now you're only able to get 1 per round, but you can buy the other one, which costs 100 credits. The smokes can replenish, but it takes about 40 seconds to be able to use them again. So in most rounds, you're going to be able to place a max of 3 smokes, with each of them lasting up to 15 seconds. Finally, his ult is from the Shadows, which costs 7 ult points and is basically a better version of his TP, since you're able to TP anywhere in the map. Finally, let's talk about the last controller, Viper. So the first ability that we're going to be going over is her C, which is her Snake Bite, or also known as her Molly. Her Molly is one of the weakest mollies in the game as it does 12 damage per second, but it makes the enemy vulnerable for 2 seconds after they have stepped foot out of the molly. The molly stays up for around 6.5 seconds and you're able to buy 2 per round, costing 200 credits per each. Even though her molly is one of the weakest in the game, it works well with her Q or Poison Cloud. You're able to have one Poison Cloud which costs around 200 credits and stays up for 15 seconds depending on how much toxin fuel you have at the moment. The reason why it works well with your Snakebite is due to the fact that her Poison Cloud will deal 30 damage whenever an enemy steps foot inside of her cloud. Your enemy's HP will also slowly decrease the longer they're inside the cloud. And when you have your Snakebite, you can quickly kill her enemy that has been inside the Poison Cloud for some time. Also, for her next ability, which is a free ability, is called Toxin Screen. This has the same sort of mechanic where your enemy will automatically lose 30 HP whenever they touch the wall. Her Toxin Screen is also very useful in bigger maps like Icebox and Breeze, since it could single-handedly be able to cut off a huge portion of the enemy's line of sight. Finally, her ultimate is called Viper's Pit, which takes 7 ult points and can stay up as long as Viper is in the pit. Again, the damage mechanic is very similar to her Poison Cloud or Toxin Screen. Now that we know our controller agents, let's get into their kits and go over what's the role of a controller. Now, as you can see, the controllers have pros and cons, but they all have one thing in common. They're all able to smoke or block out the enemy's line of sight. Mind-blowing stuff, right? In all seriousness, the goal of the controller is to be able to give your team the control of a certain part of the map, whether you're on offense or defense, since you're able to block the enemy's line of sight. So most controllers have at least 2 abilities that can simultaneously block 2 entryways onto a line of sight. Now, a common strategy in Valorant is to be able to smoke off the entryways into a certain site. For example, let's say you're playing offense on descent, and your team has decided they want to push B. What you should do as a controller is smoke the CT entrance and smoke off the market door, since you want to block your enemy's line of sight of any players that may be playing in those angles. In my games, I see way too many people trying to smoke off things like boat or speedway. Doing this is causing us as the attacking team to blindly push onto his site, and it gives the opponents the advantage since they're able to have more space in which they can control on B site. The enemies can also be able to play off the smoke since they're able to peek off from it and can get back into the smoke, making it harder for you to hit them. So again, to reiterate, smoking off market and CT entrance would probably be the best option in this case, since you want to block lines of sight of commonly played angles, and also you can cut off anybody that's rotating over from A site or mid. Now of course, more than likely there are going to be some people playing on B site. Well, in that case, the best thing to do is communicate with your teammates and ask if they have abilities that can help push onto the site. Things like Reyna's Leer can help you push onto the site and hopefully find a pick or two on the enemies that are playing on B site. Also, you can help too by either mollying, flashing, or stunning commonly played areas on the site. But more than likely, you're going to want to have your duelist take care of the enemies on the site. Now let's get into how you should be placing your smokes. When you're attacking, I really recommend smoking off market and CT entrance again. But the way you're going to want to place your smoke is very important. You're not going to want to place your smokes like this, since this allows your enemy to easily peek out and either get onto stairs quicker or be able to play off the smoke since they're going to be isolated from some angles when they peek. You're going to want to make sure you place your smokes deep. Now what I mean by that is make sure your smoke is aligned with the doorway entrance. So in market, you're going to want to align your smoke with the entrance like this. And for CT entrance, you're going to want to place your smoke like this. Also, let's take a look at another example. Let's say your team is deciding to push on C site on Haven. You're not going to want to place the smoke like this. The reason you're not going to want to place your smoke like this is because the enemy is able to easily get onto site without you knowing. Yes, you are more likely to have an easier time planning since if you come with teammates, you're going to be covered by them. But your enemies are allowed easy access to the site. Also, some people might recommend placing your smoke in front of you, giving you the advantage that I talked about earlier whenever you're able to peek off your smoke. I don't really recommend this option since I think 9 times out of 10, it would have just been better if you placed your smoke on a common entryway rather than in front of you. Now the same concept is going to apply on defense. You're going to want to place your smoke deep in common entryways like smoke deep in B main entrance. This again will cause your enemy to randomly peek out the smoke, being exposed to multiple angles. Also, something like this works for attacking but happens more often in defense. You're able to combine your smoke with other utility you have in your kit. Now let's say your enemy is trying to push onto B site. What you're going to want to do is smoke the entrance deep. And right side of the smoke, you can place your utility down like a molly, flash, or suck in case your enemies decide to push through the smoke, and you could either delay the push or cause your enemy to take chip damage that hopefully makes it easier for your teammates to eliminate your enemies. Now another way to place the smoke is by using one-ways. One-ways are smokes that give you the advantage whenever you're playing on offense or defense, by only being able to see your enemy's feet while they're not able to see you at all. Now I won't get into too much detail when it comes to one-ways and where to place them, since I have an Omen guide on the best one-way smokes on every map, and I have another one on Breeze. Also, I want to quickly mention that I think Omen is the best agent for one-ways, since you're able to place one-ways in a lot more places unlike the other agents in the game. In this video, I'm mainly going to be going over when you want to use one-way smokes as compared to regular smokes. A common example that I can show you that is an effective one-way is when you place a one-way on this wall on A split. What you're going to want to do is place your smoke in between these two lines and place your smoke at around this height. This will give you a nice one-way on anyone that's planning to push on A. If you notice, this is how it looks like whenever you're playing up here on A rafters, and this is how it looks like whenever you're pushing A lane. As you can see, I would be able to see the enemy's feet while they won't be able to see me. Now, when should you place a one-way instead of a regular smoke? Well, that depends on your teammates and where you're placing the one-way. A one-way that you can use that I think is a bit underrated is whenever you're on B side on ascent. What you can do is one-way CT entrance if you're playing on site, as this will give you easy kills on your opponents. But if you're just pushing onto a site from B main entrance, you're more than likely not going to want to place a one-way there, since there's this whole section open up for the enemy's line of sight. So in this case, it would be better if you just place a regular smoke on the CT entrance. So based on the situation, you might want to place your one-way on certain areas of the map. More than likely, if you're unsure, just go ahead and place a regular smoke. Now that I've talked about what a controller may do and their kits, let's go over what controller is right for you. Choosing the right controller is typically something you're going to need to try out for yourself by playing each one and seeing which one you like the best. Hopefully in this section I can give you a basic idea on which controller you're going to want to use. Now if you're somebody who's fairly new to playing controller agents, I would recommend playing Brimstone, since this kit is pretty versatile. Playing as Brimstone will allow you to learn how the controller wheel works by using his iPad, which is just a point and click mechanic, since you're able to choose where you want to place your smokes. Also, his molly can help you get extra kills by using some of the methods I talked about in this video, or even playing post-plant lineups. His Stim Beacon is also really helpful when it comes to using it for your team, since it can help you win extra gunfights due to the fact that you have a faster fire rate. But eventually I do think you're going to want to upgrade to some of the other controllers in the game, since Brimstone does have his limitations. One of his cons is his iPad, since he's not able to smoke out areas that are across the map, as other controllers are able to. So to reiterate, I think he's a good starter controller, but then again you should upgrade to another controller in the future. Next controller I think you should learn once you get the hang of Brim is Omen. Omen can basically place smokes across the map, which is really useful whenever you're trying to help out your teammates. Also, as Omen, I mentioned it a bit before, but he's the best agent for one-ways, which can help you whenever you're trying to learn how to play as a controller. Also, his kit's very self-sufficient for kills, since you're able to use his TP to get yourself out of sticky situations. You can also play more of a support role with your team with dedicated flashes. Also, a big plus to Omen over Brim is that his smokes regenerate after some time, while Brim only has 3 static smokes per round. I feel as though you can't go wrong with having an Omen on your team. I would place Omen as sort of a mid tier in this case, since he's easier to learn than the other agents that I'm going to be talking about, and he also has some pros and cons as compared to the other controllers in the game. Next controller I will learn how to master is Viper. I think Viper is probably one of the best controllers when it comes to bigger maps in the game, since her wall is a good way to block off a large part of the map. Also, she's an agent that can basically replace a sentinel, since she's able to lock down a site. Her utility is really good for holding off an enemy push on a given site, since the enemy team will take a lot of damage if they decide to push a smoke. Also, her snake bite helps finish off an enemy, since they're not going to want to take extra damage that they got dealt from her toxin. Also, her ult is probably one of the best ults in the game, since once you see a Viper's ult, you're not going to want to push that way. Since it's really hard to be able to find her while she's in her ult, the enemies can take a lot of damage while they're searching for her. At the moment, there are 2 main problems with Viper, well, one that bleeds over to the second one. One is that she's a hard agent to master. It's pretty hard to know when and where you should be placing your wall or smoke up. There are a couple of Viper lineups videos that I'm sure you can find on YouTube that may help you with putting up her smoke or wall on certain areas of the map. But also having the knowledge on when you should be placing your smokes up can be tricky. The second part of her con is playing on smaller maps like Split, Bind, and Ascent. Playing the smaller maps can be difficult since her wall takes up a bunch of space on the map and it can hurt your team on certain situations. This is mainly due to the fact that in rank, unless you're playing with all your friends, it's typically not going to be as much communication that's needed. So I think playing as Viper on smaller maps can be a con. Finally, let's talk about the last controller, which is Astra. Astra, in my opinion, is the best controller in the game, since she could basically be used on every map. Placing her smokes only takes about a second as compared to having to learn lineups like with Viper, or having a smoke take a while to travel like with Omen. Astra is able to place her stars instantly, and in around 2 seconds, she's able to have her smoke appear and cover the choke point on the map. Her pull can catch enemies off guard since they have to fight against the pull and they're not so accurate whenever they're getting sucked to the middle of the star. Also, if they're still in the star once the pull ends, they're going to be vulnerable, making it easier to eliminate them while they're vulnerable. And her stunner Nova Pulse is good for pulse plant, since you can place the star on the bomb, and once you hear enemy tap the bomb, you can deploy the stun, giving you easier time in the gunfight. And finally, her ult is pretty good whenever it comes to pushing onto a site. If you place her ult like here on Haven, you can easily get access to a site once you eliminate the enemies on site. Astra can also work on every map since her smokes are really good and she's able to smoke across the map with ease. I like using her on smaller maps like Ascent, Bind, and Split. The only problem with her is on big maps. I would rather switch her off with Viper, since using Viper's wall is more useful in those cases. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and comment down below your thoughts. Now with that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.